And welcome into Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home with a $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. It is finally here, the NFL Draft. Just a mere 13 hours from now, Joe Rexrode. The draft will begin after months and months of discussing this day. We finally made it, as Liam on the text line, text line's already firing this morning. Liam says it's finally here. It feels like Christmas morning, but like adult Christmas, where you're tired from putting together kids' toys and dealing with in-laws, and it's going to be mostly disappointing. This is from Liam on the text line. Thank you, Liam.
It is, and it is kind of like the adult Christmas because, the gifts.
Yeah.
Like it's like
got a pretty good idea of what's happening.
The kid Christmas, you're excited. You have no idea what might happen.
Yeah.
You might get that Red Ranger rifle or whatever that was in the Christmas story.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
It's not Red Ranger.
No, it's not that. But Ian, help me out.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
I do. Yeah, Ralphie.
Yeah, exactly. Or you might get the
Red Ryder.
Red Ryder. Thank you. The Huffy bicycle with the banana seat.
You'll shoot your eye out.
Exactly. But if you're the parent, you just basically, you already know. But then again, if you're the parent, the whole thing is the excitement of the kid that you're, right? The excitement of the kids that you're anticipating. So I guess, how do we make that relative?
Well, I guess we'll all be excited for Cam Ward.
I guess so.
Or Chad
how
Brinker.
How excited will Cam Ward be? There you go.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be Cameron Ward tonight. That's what we learned yesterday. Roger Goodell will be announcing him as Cameron Ward.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, he's going as Cameron Ward in his career. Is that right?
He said that Roger Goodell will be announcing him as Cameron Ward because that's the name his mother gave him. But he doesn't really care if people call him Cam throughout his career. He said, people know me as Cam, and that's fine.
Okay.
So,
because I've heard some others around town very heavily pushing Cameron. And I'm like, okay, this is a thing. Okay.
Look, at this point, if he comes out and says, I would like everyone to call me Cameron Ward, then that's what we'll do. But he did not say that. He just said that's what Goodell will be saying, and he doesn't mind if everybody else calls him Cam.
Yeah, I don't know why, but Cameron Ward rubs me wrong.
Too formal?
It just doesn't. Yeah, I guess. Just doesn't. Cam Ward is, hits you right away. Cam Ward. Cameron Ward. I don't know. Maybe I'm making too much of it.
Well, maybe you can tell him that when he gets here. Cameron, yeah. I don't like your name.
You're Cam, okay?
Yeah,
Thank you.
This is what you'll be.
And you will not ask Warren Moon for number one.
Yeah, it's a story that PK came out with yesterday. Apparently, Warren Moon is open to the idea of him wearing number one when he gets here. A lot of reaction to that.
Dustin from Hopkinsville said, picking Ward is about like getting underwear as a Christmas gift. Jeez. Honestly, man. See, again, we all have our own different perspectives, but like when I get like underwear and socks, I'm excited now.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of am too. I mean, Ian, that's
like some good boxer briefs.
On the Christmas front of I used to when you're 14, 15, you get socks. It's like, oh, gee, thanks. Now,
especially if they're like nice ones.
Yeah, exactly.
And even not. Otherwise, I have to go buy them myself every year. So, hey, to save myself $20, someone sends me some socks instead. Sure.
I mean, it's legitimate excitement when I see them now. I'm like, good. I needed some of these.
No doubt. Now, we all have parenting experiences. I guess the one thing I have that you guys probably wouldn't have is children of yours stealing your clothing.
Yeah,
having that.
That's a big problem. Yet. So when I get underwear and socks and then I can hide them somewhere.
Oh yeah,
good.
Especially the nice ones. I could see
sure.
how. Yeah.
And then they're mismatched and
All right, so the NFL draft is here. We have made it. It is Cam Ward Day here in Nashville. We'll take your thoughts on that all show long. In the meantime, in preparation for Cam Ward Day, they've gotten him a receiver. Tyler Lockett is the newest member of the Tennessee Titans. If you missed it, so did I, because I was asleep when this happened last night. Tyler Lockett signs a deal with the Titans. According to reports, it's a one-year deal worth $4 million that could get up to as much as $6 million. Tyler Lockett, 32 years old. He had 49 catches and 600 yards last year, 2 touchdowns with Seattle. played in all 17 games last year, so you like seeing that from a year ago. And frankly, if you look out through his career, he's been incredibly durable. And that kind of goes right in line with the other moves the Titans have made this offseason for the most part. They have clearly made it a point of emphasis of looking for players that have a history of remaining healthy. We talked about that during the main part of the free agency period. And now again here with Lockett, right before the draft, they signed him at age 32, coming off a 49-catch, 600-yard season where he played in all 17 games. Joe, what do you make of this move of Tyler Lockett joining the receiver room for the Titans?
Tyler Boyd, see you later. Welcome, Tyler Lockett, to the pantheon of receivers well past their prime who come to the Tennessee Titans. However,
Really is quite a club.
It is. Now, remember, one of the most recent ones, DeAndre Hopkins, actually had a really good season with the Tennessee Titans. Let's not forget that. He was bucking history that year. That they didn't win, but he was bucking history. So it's not 100% that receivers who come here who have had great careers are going to come here to do nothing. I do feel like he'll be more of a productive presence than the last Tyler.
I would agree.
I don't hate it at all. Given the state of their receiver room,
I'm all for it.
Yeah, given the state of their receiver room, he immediately is a key guy in this offense. You don't necessarily want him to be a key guy in your offense, but it's so bereft of talent in that receiver room that you had to do something like this. So I know some people might look at this and say, oh, so now they're definitely drafting an edge, like with number 35 or whatever. I don't look at this as any, I guess the way I would look at this is they absolutely have to get a starting level receiver in this draft. Maybe now in the 5th or something, or, whatever, later in the draft, maybe they do something other than, because I thought they would have to take 2 receivers in this draft. So maybe not now. That would be the possible impact on their drafting.
I say I like this move. I like it from the standpoint of, Lockett is a durable guy. He's not very expensive, and he brings some leadership and some experience, and frankly, just another body in the room. Like, they need as many bodies in that room right now as they can get. I don't need this to change the draft strategy for the Titans towards the top of the draft at all. Like, if you were before this signing thinking about wide receiver, you need to still be thinking about wide receiver when it comes to number 35 overall or trading back or whatever it is. Like, to me, what we've talked about all offseason, edge rusher and receiver, does not change one iota with Tyler Lockett being signed here. So I hope that's the way the Titans approach it. Now, look, if the best player on your board rolls around at pick 35 and it's an edge rusher, then take the edge rusher. Like, that's always been my position. For sure. I think, that part of it doesn't change either. So, whether they end up with an edge rusher at 35 or a wide receiver at 35, or, if they trade back and try to pick up both, I'm cool with that. But I hope this does not change we're good now. We've got Ridley and Lockett. We don't need some young wide receiver going, well, yeah, you do. You still need one. So make sure that you accomplish that if you're the Titans.
And I would think, I know these guys aren't Bill Polian, but I think they probably get that.
Well, I hope whoever they draft has ran a 4.51 or faster.
That's true. So
otherwise they have no chance.
So it's 4.51 or more. No, you're out.
Yeah, if you haven't run at least a 4.51, you can't be drafted.
Okay, so 4.51, you're okay.
4.51, 4.52, you're screwed.
4.52, you are out of there, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep that in mind.
Good to know.
I mean, look, Dante Thornton well clears that. He's fine. You can draft him according to the Bill Polian standard.
That's true.
Forget 4.3 something.
Forget like how he has been hurt or hasn't necessarily played all that well or whatever. But 40 times awesome.
No, I mean, it is. So obviously Lockett spent his entire career in Seattle. You're talking about 10 years. So he's been an incredibly productive player there, really highlighted from basically 2018 until, really as recently as 2023, but I'd go 2022 where it kind of cuts off the prime there. Like in 2018, he had 57 catches, 965 yards, and 10 touchdowns. and that's when he kind of burst onto the scene. And then after that, it was basically like anywhere from 80, 75 to 100 catches per year, over 1,000 yards for the next 4 years, and kind of approaching double-digit touchdowns every year. So he's been incredibly productive. You know, it started to go the other way. 2023, he had 79 catches for 894 and 5 touchdowns. Last year, the catch total really dropped to 49 and 600. So you can see it. He's going the other way.
Yes.
But frankly, like if you told me right now that he ended up with the same exact stat line that he had a year ago, 49 catches for 600 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's probably not going to get Titans fans overly excited. I would sign up for that today.
100%.
I would take it right now.
For what they're paying him, absolutely. I think the Titans will be thrilled with that production. And then you if you have that with, Ridley having the season that he needs to have, which is certainly more than 1,000 yards, and then receiver TBD giving you production, then okay. It looks a little bit more like an NFL team now.
Right. And look, I think you just need to know, and I think Titans fans do, that this is not Tyler Lockett from 2020 walking through the door here. I mean, you've got to understand that. And as long as you understand that at age 32, and then he'll be 33 coming up in September, what are realistic expectations? Like, again, I think this is good for Cam Ward. He's obviously been a guy that has been available. He's been durable, and it gives you another guy that knows what he's doing at the NFL level in the receiver room. That, frankly, right now they got like one of those guys. They got Ridley. So This is a good move, in my opinion, on that front, and I hope it does not change their draft strategy tonight. Tyler Lockett, the newest member of the Tennessee Titans. We'll take your reaction to that. 615-737-1025, our phone number. It is draft day. We have made it. Your thoughts on what could be officially dubbed in our city as Cam Ward Day, if things go well with this draft pick. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. This week's Nashville's Best Deal is Fog Street Lawn Club, Nashville's premier soccer pub and rooftop. Fog Street Lawn Club offers scrumptious bites, British lawn bowling, and premier soccer pub vibes. Get half off a $30 gift card now at theGameNashville.com/deals and dive into the ultimate rooftop experience. It is draft day tonight. Taking your thoughts on that, 615-737-1025. Mike from Pennsylvania says, I like kicking the tires on Lockett. I'd take him over Keenan Allen. Not expecting much, but it never hurts to have an experienced pro. Mo says, I mean, what Tyler Lockett had last year, I was hoping Traylon Burks would get that with a crying, laughing emoji face.
And then someone else, was that Dustin, said, no, those are NWI numbers.
Well, I mean, not the same touchdown volume.
Yes,
NWI is a touchdown machine last year.
Touchdown maker. But
and he only had 32 catches. 32 catches, 9 touchdowns. That's a heck of a touchdown rate.
That is absurd. Yeah, Lockett, a guy who's like the last 3 years. I mean, like you said, he burst on the scene 18, 17 yards a catch that year. Last 3 years he's around 11, 12 a catch. Whereas, like in the 20 or 21, it's 16, 1 a catch, yards per catch. It's one of those things you look at. Lockett, I think, in fact, in 21, long there is 69. I think that happened against the Titans. Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah. I believe that he,
Russell Wilson throwing one of those moon balls.
Yeah. And the Titans had a little mix up. But don't worry, because Julio Jones showed he would be a star that season on that day.
Yeah, I remember that day because they called a touchdown back that I think to this day is pretty clearly still a touchdown from Julio Jones.
Yeah.
Robbed us all.
Yeah.
That's the same day that Josh Reynolds, that's a heck of a game. Same day that Josh Reynolds was going in motion and decided to just start running forward like it was arena football.
Yeah, jet motion.
It's like, what's he doing? Wow, he's 6 yards past the line of scrimmage. How about that?
The Titans back then could be behind in a game and still just be like, here, Derek, will you save us? Yeah, run for a 75-yard touchdown, will you?
Exactly what he did in that game. Yeah. That's a fun game.
Good times.
Little did we know Tyler Lockett would be a part of the Titans just a few years later.
How about that?
Maybe not quite the same guy.
Yeah, not quite the same Titans either.
Not quite the same Titans. Let's head back to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Ed in New Jersey. Ed, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, gentlemen. Joe, real quick before I just ask my question, I share your rant from yesterday. I don't know when, as a middle 50s individual, that I signed up for Senior Assassin, but apparently I have, and I wind up pulling my son's car, who parked a block and a half away, around to my driveway, and wind up getting shot by 2 kids jumping out of the bushes with water pistols. So
unbelievable.
I don't know.
What a time we're living
when
in.
I signed up. So
just wait till my rant today, because I got new information today for a rant. So this is an epidemic. Epidemic.
I can go on for 20 minutes. I can go on for 20 minutes about it. Anyway, quarterbacks are often talked about as having like this it factor, and I think it's thrown around an awful lot. I'd like to know what your guys' opinion of what that is. To me, it's to be able to be clutch and to be able to show that you can bring your team back. Maybe, come from behind wins, those type of things. Because as a rookie, in a room full of veterans, I don't know how you become an alpha without showing that it's not too big. The moment's not too big for you. So I wanted to get your opinion on what you think the it factor is.
Yeah, good question. I appreciate it. There's one word that came to mind when he started talking about that, and it's just unflappable. Like, that's what I think of. Are you, no matter what's going on out there, are you unflappable with the way it's going? And look, I think a lot of times it does manifest itself in, being clutch and coming up with big plays and key moments. But I think it's also like when things are going poorly, can you pull your team out of it? Like that's another part of it is having that it factor. Can you pull yourself and pull your team out of it? Not every time, but more often than not. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a good that term is of course used in so many ways different. Yep. But I think at quarterback, I would agree that being poised and being able to come through in those big moments, right, is a big deal. Like, if you want to look at Cam Ward last year, I think the ultimate Cam, I've talked about this, but the ultimate Cam Ward experience is definitely that Cal game where he did some things that helped them build a deficit that were like, what are you doing? And then at the end, he was insanely good. on those drives to get them close and then to end up winning the game. It factor. It's funny because it factor is it actually makes me think of my friends at S2 Cognition, because their whole thing is like, see, the it factor is actually mental processing with a lot of players. Like, it's like, what? That guy just has an instinct. Well, actually, he processes quicker than other people. It's funny how S2 is no longer. Those guys have they've gone back into please nobody talk about it. Right. But I promise you, teams in this league are still paying them a lot of money to evaluate quarterbacks included too.
Well, it's funny because I largely probably agree with that. It's the processing part. But then I would also say McNair's was different. McNair's he had the it factor of basically a lot of his were pulling the ball down and going and picking up some yards where you're just like, how did he do that?
And also for him, it was tough.
It was toughness.
I mean, that's got to be a part of it factor too, right?
I remember, I was only a little kid at the time, but watching what I could still to this day, I remember where I was, whose house I was at, what I was doing, watching that last drive of the Super Bowl where he got out of that sack when Kevin Carter and whoever else was chasing there. And I was like, oh my God, they're going to win. That guy's unbelievable. Just having moments like that is what you're looking for from when you're drafting a quarterback number one.
Yeah. Yeah. So it can mean a lot of things, but yeah, you definitely, I agree, unflappability, poise, all that stuff. And as far as him being the alpha, I mean, it's one of those things where, first of all, everybody in this locker room knows that the entire organization now is counting on he's coming in to turn everything around.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys, I promise you all, will just hope he's great. I don't think he has to come in and immediately stake his, piece of territory. They all know he's a rookie and he has to grow into it. But it is one of those things where if he does some special things on the field this year, obviously that helps him a lot. But again, go back to Levis's rookie year, and the first time he went on the field, and it was like, oh my God, look at this kid. I mean, people want to embrace that. They want it to be real.
Well, and frankly, what I know of Cam Ward's personality and what I've seen, I think he's got a lot of that. He's got a lot of stuff to him that's going to endear him to his teammates. Again,
moxie.
He's got that. Again, the most important thing is can you play? That's what it boils down to. Can you play at a high enough level on a consistent basis to really get that buy-in from your team? But he's got, I think, all that other stuff. Kyle in Shelbyville on the text line, our Robby and Rexrode Fantasy Football League champion. I really like the Lockett signing. I'm still taking a wide receiver over edge at pick number 35. Would y'all take Luther Burden over Landon Jackson now? It's funny you bring those two guys up because I actually love those two guys. I think Luther Burden's really good. I think Landon Jackson's really good. I think if you force me to pick, Joe, I would probably go Burden, but it's close.
I probably would too. Yeah, I probably would too. And again, that's what it is. It's the specific player. It's not. Let's take this position here. Let's take that position there. It's comparing players. Again, I hope for the Titans' sake that they're able to bail out of there and get more picks because that's what they really need. But yeah, if they have to pick at that spot, I'd be hard pressed to not take Luther Burden at 35. I think that's pretty good value.
Well, we're going to get in later in the show to, I think tonight into the kind of the first part of tomorrow in the second round has the chance to be pretty wild. With how this class is apparently viewed and the similarity of some of these players, I think it's got a chance to be a pretty entertaining draft from the standpoint of just unpredictability of what could happen. So I'm looking forward to that. William from Madison on the text line says, I guess with the Lockett signing, that drops Burks from Ward's top wide receiver list. It is a good question. Traylon Burks is number 4 wide receiver in the league. Is Lockett in there now?
Yeah.
Burks get kicked out?
We need a new Fortnite stream so we can get your ranking of Titans receivers. Cameron.
Maybe it just moves Lockett up. Maybe he jumps ahead of Burks. So it's just Ridley, Lockett, and Burks still in top 4.
Maybe. I don't know.
Let's find out. Maybe the first question he gets asked.
Hog hunting is still an endearing quality.
It is. Can you do that when you've torn your ACL?
That's a good question.
Probably makes it a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, I guess. You can still sit in the right? Like you can,
Get a lawn chair out there.
yeah, you can still
Bring the hogs to me.
I mean, if you're a good shot, I think you could probably pull it off.
John Calipari to come call the hogs, and I'll get them.
Lance says the it factor is a good O-line and a offensive coordinator. Those are good things for a quarterback. Yeah,
it certainly helps. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More your thoughts to get to on draft day here for the Titans and the signing of Tyler Lockett last night to add to the wide receiver room. We'll have the best and worst things in sports coming up at 6:45. Bruce Feldman from The Athletic will be with us at 7 o'clock. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. It's a lovey-dovey time in our YouTube chat right now. A lot of love being displayed for our program. We very much appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Oh, I haven't gone in there yet. As soon as I get in there, it'll get nasty.
I mean, yesterday you're like, are these YouTube chatters idiots?
Hey, idiots!
Now they're professing their love for us on there. It's
Pipe,
good stuff.
Pipe down, idiots.
Taking your thoughts. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Terrell says, with the signing of Lockett, if they're available in the second round, I'd draft either Ted McMillan, Matthew Golden, or Igbuka. I don't know if any of those guys are going to be available in the second round. I would say
Matthew
the best
Golden
chance is probably, I guess, Igbuka.
Yeah.
But even I still have my doubts that he's going to make it all the way down to 35.
I do too. McMillan is definitely one of those guys tonight that could be all over the place.
Yep.
He could be the first receiver taken. He could be top 10-ish. He could be low first, which would be, well, I mean, I guess, he could really slide. It's possible. Interesting stuff like from Baumgartner on him the other day about the film difference, how the year before. I mean, the year before, they in general were all like quarterback play. I know the same quarterback, but like all of it was way better. But I still feel like he's a good player. We'll see.
I got one texter asking if Tyler Lockett's going to have the Titans curse. I mean, at this point, does he qualify as a curse? I understand, Julio Jones is probably the best example because before he got here, even though he had the injury the year before, he was still an incredibly productive player.
Yes.
And then he got here and it just immediately was gone.
Yeah.
Even Randy Moss, Randy Moss was starting to go the other way. Andre Johnson
what
was
year
near
was Randy
retirement.
Moss? Was it 08?
I think it was 10.
Oh, yeah. That's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Andre Johnson, the same thing. I mean, Andre Johnson, Julio would definitely be the best example, I think, of all those guys although I guess then, Pickens would be another example.
Yeah, but Hopkins was good. Hopkins came in and at least his first year was pretty good here for the Titans.
But Julio, you give up second round pick because
Right.
he had been nothing but Julio Jones until then. That's people.
Right.
Now, again, so in revising history, it's like, oh, man, that guy was – no, he wasn't. He wasn't on the downswing. He had a injury for the first time in his career. He had been as durable as anybody before that last year. So, again, it's easy to rip on everything John Robinson did. I still stand by – I loved it when they made that move. So he'd be the best example of, oh, my God. Of course, the cliff happens here. Tyler Lockett's already been declining.
Yeah, Lockett's 32, and I said it. 49 catches, 600 yards, and 2 touchdowns is what he had last year. That's probably the high end of my expectation for him this year. If he gave you 45 catches for 520, and maybe he had a couple more touchdowns in there, right around there, I think is probably what you're going to get for him. The thing I like most about him is he stays healthy. Now, it's the NFL, and when you're 32, eventually that probably goes the other way on you too, but he's been incredibly healthy throughout his career. So I just think you got to adjust your expectations of what Lockett is coming in.
Yeah. And if you can count on him to play every week and give you some production, give you some professionalism out there, you've helped yourself. I mean, and so the expectations need to be limited, and then it's not going to be, yes, they've had a bunch of guys, but this is another one of those things where if you could talk to other fans from other franchises, and they'd be like, yeah, you want to hear my long list of formerly great players who came here outside their prime, and it happens in the league all over the place.
Here's another thing that's interesting in the draft to keep an eye on that we've not really spent a ton of time talking about just because of what they did in free agency, and that is, do they at any point here address the offensive line further, right? They brought in, obviously, Dan Moore to play left tackle. They're moving Latham to the right. So you've got 2 starting tackles on your team. You brought in Zeitler. You've got Skoronski. The wild card here is kind of center because I have no idea, what's going to happen at center with them, particularly early in the year with the injury. But, it's still you could still probably use a young offensive tackle somewhere, right? Like at some point to have over there
Yes.
is maybe like a swing tackle, like NPF's gone, one injury, and then you're all of a sudden you're up a creek again at your tackle spot. So we haven't talked a lot about it because they've addressed that need. But like I'm still not going to totally remove that from the land of possibility for the Titans drafting an offensive lineman somewhere here.
I'm not mad at them if they draft an offensive lineman. Again, it's just like whatever you do, it's at the expense of another spot that you really need. But I'm not mad at that idea at all. They need young. And again, I understand that year one, the Bill Callahan effect was not nearly what everyone hoped it would be. But he is still here. He does still have the track record that he has. And you would hope that a later round, you might be able to find a gem because of his eye for offensive linemen, right?
Yeah, like he's exactly. Like I don't really want to see him do it in the second or third round. Like if they trade back, it'd be tough. But again, like it goes back to like what if you trade back and you pick up a third round pick, and by the time your pick rolls around, an offensive lineman's your best guy on the board. Like I guess you got to do it at that point if you're the Titans.
Sure.
Like
Although the tackles are kind of solid for the next couple of years,
yeah,
right?
they are.
You would think, given the contract and the ages of Latham and Moore.
I just think you can never have enough tackle.
Yeah,
right?
I guess if one of those guys goes down, then what? Yeah.
Which is pretty much guaranteed, right? I mean,
at some point, yeah. Like it's hard to imagine both of them being completely healthy the whole time. That'd be great.
I mean, he could always move Skronsky to tackle.
He could.
Maybe that's his destiny all along.
Maybe so. Have some of this, Mike Vrabel.
Probably not.
By the way, Vrabel, if Vrabel does draft Will Campbell and puts him at tackle, that's interesting. Because Will Campbell is apparently he's Tyrannosaurus Rex. There's so much talk about his short arms. I mean,
it's like, wow, it's amazing that guy even has arms.
Yeah, does he have any arms at all? Holy cow!
It's like Kenny Pickett's
little
hands.
baby arms.
Like, wow, Kenny Pickett, how's he even grip a football? It's unbelievable.
But Vrabel's like, no, he's a tackle. Okay, I don't know, man. I'm just saying that they had a different idea. By the way, I texted Vrabel last night.
Did you?
Yeah, he was at the Celtics game with Robert Kraft, and they had some huge run, and they showed Vrabel. He was like this, and I just said, nice golf clap at a basketball game. Like, show some fire, man. He didn't respond, but I'm sure he's coming on the show soon.
He's not prepping for the draft. I hope
yeah, exactly. How about you study up on some draft picks?
Vrabel, what are you doing?
Glad you have time to go to a Celtics game and golf clap in a playoff game. Their draft's going to suck.
It says, based on the press conference, I'm really curious if they truly go best player available. I'm bracing for a defensive tackle or a safety at 35. I will say, pretty good safeties in this draft.
There's that one kid from South Carolina.
Yeah,
they said he was like a freak.
Evan Worry.
There's some pretty good safeties in this draft.
He's going to the first round, I believe. Actually, we're going to have Bruce on soon. He's a big Evan Worry fan.
Yeah, I mean, you could get Malachi Moore, Alabama, a little bit later in the draft.
Speaking of safeties, you see what the Lions did?
Yeah.
Kirby Joseph is the highest paid safety of all time in the NFL.
It's a lot of money.
Good player, but wow.
It's a lot of money.
83 mil? Is that right?
What does that mean for Branch?
That's a good question.
Branch is well. I mean, Branch is.
What is he? Is he a safety? Is he a corner?
No, well, Branch he plays some nickel too, but he's a great player. They'll pay him too.
They got him in the second round.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting to see.
Yeah,
a lot of money being thrown around out there.
Undefeated 2025.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We have the best and worst things in sports coming up next here on Draft Day. We'll have Bruce Feldman from The Athletic joining us at 7 o'clock. Charles Robinson will be with us at 8 o'clock for his weekly visit. Great day to have Charles on the program. Interesting stuff brewing around the NFL draft. We'll get to all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst.
You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. Believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
It is time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things for the sports world this week on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Well, I kind of go too general with these things. I should find some like really good stories sometimes. But my best thing is that while we have the draft tonight, and that's great, I'm excited for the draft. The draft's good. Doesn't need to be 3 days, but the draft's good. The best thing is that every day right now we have awesome sports to watch. We have awesome NBA games. Not all of them are awesome, but pretty much every night you're going to find at least one really good Stanley Cup playoff or NBA playoff game, and there's a bunch of them on. Like this first round for both is when there's just so many games. Plus we have MLB. So it's great to have actual sports to watch as we all sit here tonight and watch people hug Roger Goodell. Let's remember there's actual sports. I will be over, Titans headquarters. I will be streaming actual sports while these things are going on, while people are, harumphing and hugging and whatever at the draft. The draft's cool though. The draft's cool. My worst is, at this point, look, like we're going to have Bruce Feldman on, and his stuff is fascinating. He gets all these college people talk about the prospects and give some frank assessments that they wouldn't give if they were given their names. I mean, it's valuable, and we all like it. Some of the just teeing off on like Shedeur Sanders in particular, it's just stupid, and it's so cowardly. Like this latest one of, the worst interview I've ever had, and he's not even good anywhere. You're a clown. And again, this is like some of the people, and I'll go back to like some of the, the people ripping on Rand Carthon. Again, I understand. I don't have a problem with Kaharski writing it or anything like that. But like acting like falling asleep on a plane is some freaking crime. It's some of this stuff is pretty weak, and we see it again here around draft time, and it gets a little bit. By the time we get to this day, it's gotten a little old.
He's a TV prospect.
Yes.
Ian Safar, your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Yes, he is.
Best, low-hanging fruit draft tonight. Even though it's a little,
I'm just excited it's here.
It's just that it's here, even though we kind of know what the Titans are going to do. Anticlimactic in that way. But I think I'm going to have to go with the Gabriel Landeskog.
Yeah.
Returning for Colorado.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Not that I'm a huge Avs fan or necessarily a huge Landeskog fan, to be honest with you, but just the perseverance, what he's gone through to make it back to play. Pretty much everyone was counting him out, I'd say, at one point. So pretty cool. Good story for him to be back.
Hadn't played since the Stanley Cup final in 2022.
Yeah,
pretty wild.
That is.
So that's pretty good. And I guess worst thing in sports, this is more of a generalized sports rant in a way. These sing-alongs during the hockey games, or I guess basketball doesn't really do it as much, more in particular hockey. They take a little pause, little break. Music comes on before the puck drop. Puck is put in play. Face-off is done. Music goes off. Crowd continues to sing. And it's like really lame songs is my biggest
Well, that's
issue.
the key, right?
That's the key. They're like...
So give me some examples of the songs.
Blink 182.
Yeah,
they did
Lit. My own
Lit.
Lit.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
The Killer song, Bright Side.
Yes, Bright Side's a huge one.
That's
yeah.
they'll play those
basically
songs, like all those 90s
late
bangers.
90s, early 2000s rock.
Which is fine, but it's like, are we at a concert or are we at a sporting event? Is the game on or is the game not on? And why are we singing these ridiculously lame songs throughout the entire crowd as the play is already happening?
Ian Safar would
Get
like you
off
all to
my
shut
ice.
up.
Get off my ice, says Ian.
So that was a more generalized
I
one
respect
that
it.
has come to mind over the past week or so.
I respect it. I like that. I like that a lot. My best thing in sports is I'm excited, not from the Titans standpoint tonight, because we know what's going to happen. We've been talking about it for months. I think this first round is going to be awesome from the standpoint of I have no idea where some of these guys are going to go. I think generally in most drafts, you've got a pretty rough idea of kind of the flow of what it's going to take. There's always surprise here or there, but for the most part, you've got a pretty rough idea of like the flow of how it's going to go through the first round. Once you get beyond like pick 4, I have no idea how this thing's going to go. Like, where's Ashton Genty going tonight? Where's, Will Campbell going tonight? Where's Ted McMillan going tonight? Like, I think it's going to be awesome. So I'm really looking forward to that part of it from the draft. I'm not sure that Joe means that this is a great draft from the standpoint of like the actual players, but the draft itself, I think, could be pretty entertaining tonight. So I'm looking forward to that. My worst thing in sports, I think the Edmonton Oilers are on the brink of a crisis here. And I don't know if they quite know it. I'm really interested to see how this goes. They are down 2-0 in their series to the LA Kings. This is the 4th year in a row they've played them in the first round. They've won the previous 3. And I said heading in the show, Edmonton's got a ton of injuries right now. They hadn't really played great all year. And I picked LA to win this series. And right now it's looking like they may make quick work of this series. If they lose, which means they will have yet again, with McDavid and Draisaitl leading the way, failed to win a championship here. I'm looking around right now at their contractual situation. They just signed Draisaitl to this huge number this last offseason. After this year, McDavid's got 1 year left. He's got 1 year left on his deal at $12.5 million. And I'm telling you, man, like, if I'm him, I am keeping my options. There's no way I'm signing an extension with Edmonton this offseason. I am keeping my options open moving into next year. So I think this could get interesting with McDavid. Maybe he doesn't agree with that and he just says, yeah, just give me the extension. I would keep my options open if I'm him.
When they stink next year, who's getting him as a rental next year?
That's a good question. Imagine McDavid centering Stamkos and Marchessault. That'd be something.
Oh, boy.
Barry Trotz?
Maybe that's been Barry's plan
Barry's plan the
all
whole
along.
time.
We just didn't know.
We need to keep some room open for Connor McDavid. Get that draft pick in this year, have McDavid in next summer. And frankly, if that's your plan, I'm here for it. It makes this whole season worth it.
Squeak into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. The best got a lot of votes for best and worst in sports. One says, best is the NFL draft. The worst is what in the heck Nico Harrison was thinking with these press conferences. That whole leadership group doesn't have a clue. This is coming from a Mavs fan. You talked about that earlier this week. Quite the press conference from the Mavs GM earlier this week.
Yeah. I mean, you have the thing is, if he didn't have a press conference, then everybody would be like ripping, right? Like we do that here.
Yeah.
We rip Amy for never having a press. You have to have an end of season presser.
Just have a better one.
But man, yeah, tough scene. Now I would definitely take a break from those.
Got one texter that says the best and worst, going to watch Stillman at Twin Peaks tonight and play our new drinking game. Every time he brings up Bill Polian, we all drink. Hoping we're not passed out by the first pick.
Well, I was going to say, if you make it Bill Polian, Rick Spielman, Thomas Dimitrov, and Mike Lombardi.
Yeah.
But then you'll have to get dragged out of there. So don't do all those. But would be the
You'd be in trouble.
The Mount Rushmore of former GMs Jared Lowe's.
Ethan from Lawrenceburg says, sounds like Robby thinks McDavid's coming to the Preds. I'm not saying that.
We've uncovered the plan.
I'm just saying that if I was him, I'd keep my options open heading into next year. That's going to do it for best and worst things in sports. Keep them coming on our text line. We will banter with you there. We've got Bruce Feldman from The Athletic coming up next. Get his thoughts on the NFL draft tonight. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Thursday morning. It's draft day, finally, and the Cam Ward era for the Titans, we think, begins tonight. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Bruce Feldman from The Athletic. Bruce, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Good to be on with you.
Good to have you on with us. Appreciate you taking time to do so. So, Bruce, as we said, it feels like the Cam Ward era gets started today for the Tennessee Titans. So, as you've talked with people, as you've watched him, as you've gathered information throughout this entire process here, as we sit here today, what should Titans fans be most excited about with him and what he brings to the table, and what's maybe the biggest area of concern with Cam Ward as he steps into the NFL?
The stuff I think people really love about him, including the guys who coached him, is he's super competitive. He's got real leadership qualities, and he's a playmaker who has high level arm talent. Like, he can make any throw, any arm angle. Just has a really high level ability to make plays, and he's fearless. And I think those things are stuff that people should get excited about. The one downside with him, I think, is just he can be reckless with the football. There is so much gunslinger in him. There's times, especially I remember watching him last year, early when he got to Miami, you'd watch him and it looked like he was so nonchalant out there just because he has so much confidence in himself. But I think, to me, there is a big gap between him and the other quarterback prospects in this draft. Like, I think he's legitimate top 10 caliber pick who plays quarterback and happened to be a need there. I think it's wishful thinking on if you're going to try to convince yourself that Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart or whoever would be a guy you want to spend a top 10 pick on. It doesn't surprise me that Cam Ward could be a guy who could be the first pick in the draft with his talent set.
Yeah, and Bruce, in your piece here was extensive, talking to a lot of people at the NFL Draft Confidential. One of the quotes that really stuck to me on Ward was, top 10 stroke in the league immediately. That's saying something on the arm talent. On the intangibles, it seems like he has a great story. Obviously, he had to overcome being like a 0-star recruit, kept getting better and better. What about just like the, being leading an NFL locker room and all those intangibles that are so important at quarterback?
That's the biggest, I think the biggest thing that the Miami coaches who got him last year could not stop raving about when he got there. Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator at Miami, has done a really good job there. And they had previous guys who were, had some ability. Tyler Van Dyke was could do, did some good things. I was going to say he's a fairly talented college quarterback, but they did not have anybody who had the big A-plus leadership skills at that position. It was sorely lacking. And from the moment Cam Ward got there, they were just blown away by what they saw and how teammates responded to him, how he kind of poured into teammates, but what comes out of him on the field in terms of the competitiveness and that kind of character. Now, they didn't make the playoff last year because their defense was really bad, but without him, they're probably a 7-win team last year, maybe not even that. And I think he made Miami nationally relevant last year again. A lot of that was his talent. And as you said, his story, you have a guy who, was running an offense that there was just not enough reps of him seeing him play quarterback at what he was going to be asked to do in college. He tore it up at Incarnate Word in San Antonio. They went to Washington State and did a lot of good things without that much talent around him. And then last year at Miami, school record for touchdown passes. And even with some of the reckless play, it wasn't like he was through 20 picks. He had 7 interceptions. I'm sure there was a bunch that probably should have been picked off that were dropped. But I just think it's not just the physical tools. Again, the guys at Miami, and this is long before the draft process started, could not stop raving about what he brought to them in terms of a competitiveness and a leadership thing. He's definitely got that in him.
So, Bruce, sticking with the quarterbacks, like one of the most intriguing things to me in this draft is going to be when and where Jalen Milroe end up going. And like I look at him, you watch his athletic ability. He's got a huge arm, the ability to throw the deep ball. He's probably, in my opinion, a guy that needs to sit and develop. But what do you make of him, and how is he viewed, do you think, when it comes to the NFL and what he could be?
I think he is a developmental guy. I mean, he is blazing fast. I mean, we all watched a lot of SEC football, and there were times where he just ran away from fast guys, and he's a different kind of athlete playing quarterback than most of the top quarterbacks who have come out. Obviously Jaden Daniels can run. I think this guy's even faster than Jaden Daniels, and he's bigger. And he's got a big arm. It's just the accuracy and the consistency part you worry about if you're going to say, hey, how much better can he get at that? But there's a lot of stuff he can do where I think they can build around him. And it's just a question of where does he go? Do they have a package for him? Because of the running ability is so special. I would not put him in the category of like Lamar Jackson was obviously a phenomenal player when he came out of Louisville, and it's been a great fit for him with the Ravens. I don't know if I don't think he's as ready or as polished or as developed a playmaker and as a passer. The running part I think it's there. I think it's at that level, but you worry about, you guys saw like when he played Tennessee last year, he was bad. There was games where he was bad, and there was some games where he looked like a Heisman, where it's just like wildly inconsistent. But knowing Kalen DeBoer and some of the people at Alabama, they really speak highly of his work ethic. So at least you feel like with the work ethic there, he's very intelligent on and off the field. You think that you can get it out of him. It just may take 2 or 3 years. And usually for the guys like that, back in the older days, I want to say 20 plus years ago, you could take quarterbacks like that and say, all right, we're not worried about playing him anytime soon. And, in terms of like to be the guy to run the offense. And I think that's the way you got to approach it with him now.
Yeah, he's going to be fascinating because if you're going to go with him at some point, you have to build everything around what he does great. But if he can find that consistency, man, he could be so much fun to watch in this league. Bruce, you wrote about receivers and how it's a very deep class, but maybe not stars in this class. One guy who's of particular interest here, just because he might be there at 35, is Luther Burden. I mean, I never would have guessed for most of this year that he would be, that he would fall out of the first round, but it looks like that's possible. What do you think about him? And I guess, do you feel like this is a class where you can go pretty deep and find a good player that may not be all that different from some of the guys going in the second round?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, Joe. Like, obviously, he was a huge recruit when he went to Mizzou, and he did really well and had a big 2023. Last year, kind of tailed off, and people did wonder about some of that production. He gets compared to Deebo, and this has been the case for the moment he got there. He got compared a lot to Deebo Samuel because he's so good with the ball in his hands and, maybe not as polished a route runner. The guy who NFL receivers coaches told me, as I mentioned in the confidential piece, is more the guy they think is like the Los Angeles Savion Williams, who's a bigger receiver from TCU, who they used in the Wildcat, and he's also really unpolished and raw. I mean, Luther Burden's one guy. If you ask me, like, who's somebody who maybe you're not as high on as some of the, mock drafts have been, I would say Luther Burden kind of fits in that mode to me. I think there's guys in that range, who will be much more productive receivers. It's just a matter of like, you're hoping somebody falls to you there. I mean, you have 2 really good receivers who played at Iowa State. Different, 164. The other one's a slot who's like 5'10", 195, super strong, but both are really explosive. I think those guys, could be better fits. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Trey Harris, another guy who tore it up in the SEC, former high school quarterback. I actually think Trey Harris might be a better fit in terms of that. Just got a lot of stuff you really like in terms of his playmaking ability. It was an unconventional offense that it was more like the Tennessee offense, to be honest, an old Baylor offense that they were running there. I think he's a really good player who could be around at that spot. Kyle Williams from Washington State, super quick, very versatile, not as big as Burton, but I think he's much more polished. He's another one that I think will go somewhere in that range.
So, Bruce, the conversation around Travis Hunter obviously is fascinating. I mean, you had somebody, a passing coordinator, throwing out Justin Jefferson at receiver. I think he's going to be one of the greatest cornerbacks in NFL history. And it seems like more people that you've talked to probably lean toward defense. But how do you think it turns out for him? Like, is he actually going to be a legitimate two-way player in this league?
I mean, it's kind of unfathomable that you can do it both ways, practice it, develop. I'm with you what you said. I think he can be one of the best cornerbacks we've seen in the last 25 years. I think he is that special in terms of the ball skills, the instincts, the ability to change a direction, body control. He's football smart. I'm not saying he can't be a terrific receiver. I just think he can impact the game and separate himself. There are so many elite receivers in the NFL. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's one of them. It feels like there's about 8 of them or 10 of them. It does not feel like that with cornerbacks. And again, the guys I talk to, and I think for people who read in the piece, one of the things really interesting to me is their feeling is like there's a DB coach who makes this analogy about how to play cornerback in the NFL, it's a lot like being a starting pitcher, and you have to almost like paint the whole picture. It's not like being a closer where you can just come in and dabble in it and make a couple of big plays and come in on third down. And the more people I talked to felt, what, it'd be best if he was the guy at corner and then maybe you had a package for him on offense. I don't think he wants that right now, but he doesn't know until he did stuff nobody has ever been able to do at such a high level, playing both ways, playing 130 snaps. To me, I do the freaks list every year. The freakiest thing about him is his gas tank and the ability to make amazing plays and still looks like the first play of the game, the 130th play of the game. That's rare, and he's always been able to do it. So why would he not think he can't do it in the NFL? Because he's always proved people wrong everywhere he went. But again, the NFL is a different deal than anything he's ever seen. I think eventually he will become that cornerback and then play some on offense, because we just haven't seen anybody do it in the NFL to any extent, like since Roy Green, and it was such a different era. That Roy Green era was like 40 years ago. It's just a different time. And there's been obviously Champ Bailey, Charles Woodson. There's been a lot of high-level two-way guys over the years. I mean, there's plenty of elite athletes who want to do it. I just don't think it's realistic these days.
Well, Bruce, you're always really kind with your time. We know it's a busy time of year, and appreciate so much you taking time to be with us this morning, and we'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Bruce Feldman from The Athletic, our guest on Robby and Rexrode. We'll react to what Bruce had to say and take a look at tonight's draft beyond Cam Ward and the Titans. What kind of draft could we see? Who's going to slide? Who goes maybe a little higher than we think? We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. It's time for the 4th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament benefiting Folds of Honor, presented by Gary Force Acura, Cromwell Media, along with Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor. We'll be back at Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us, a few guest media members, athletes, musicians, as we raise money for Folds of Honor. Donations will go to provide life-changing scholarships to families of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders. You can sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. Robby and Rexrode here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Appreciate Bruce Feldman for being with us. As Ian pointed out during the break, pretty good stuff there from Feldman on Ward. Ward, if you missed it, he had his draft confidential the other day at the Athletic, and some pretty high praise in that for Cam Ward in terms of the talent that he's got. You brought up a quote from that article talking about, his arm talent, the stroke that he's got being top 10 in the NFL, like immediately as he walks in, with just the ability that he's got there. So some pretty good stuff there from Feldman on Ward. The read that I've gotten from Bruce throughout this entire thing is he thinks Cam Ward's got a chance to be pretty good at the NFL level. Yeah,
I thought that quote in particular, the top 10. Let me get the exact quote here from, and I want to make sure I have who exactly said this, not name wise, but it's a passing game coordinator. So Cam stroke is top 10 in the league immediately. His arm talent is ridiculous, end quote. Again, also he goes on to say there's still a lot of growth for him. Depends on the scheme fit, mental development, all this stuff. So all those things you hear. But another person said, Cam last year, we talk a lot about the comparison, right? Like he's ranked right around 12, 13, 15, whatever among overall prospects in this draft. And how, in previous drafts he would have been way down the list. This here's a scouting director who says, if this year's Cam would have been last year's Cam, he would have gone in the top 12. I think he would have gone in the top 12. He has a lot of pure arm talent, clean slate with injuries. I like how he's wired. So again, the things that I think are the most, obviously the arm talent is great. That's great to have. I still personally, I value like a Shedeur Sanders type of arm talent, which is, it is gonna hit the spot over and over again, even if he can't make the insane throws. I value the consistent accuracy over the crazy throws. It's great if you can have both. You want both. You want Matthew Stafford, who has insane arm talent and also consistently is accurate. But it's a good place to start. And I think another thing is like the stuff about him leading the team that Bruce talked about. I mean, that's good. That's important. Do those things matter the most? We just had a guy in here who has a lot of arm talent, is a top athlete, and frankly a better athlete than Cam Ward, and also was a leader who his teammates immediately loved him and voted him captain at Kentucky, and none of it mattered, because he didn't play well enough, and also because the everything around him was crap. Yep. And that's probably among my biggest concerns for Cam Ward making it is what he's coming into.
You get Tyler Lockett now. It's fine.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that. I scrap everything I just said.
All right. So we know Cam Ward's going number 1 tonight to the Titans. I think beyond that and beyond probably the first 3 or 4 picks, which, Travis Hunter's probably going to Cleveland. I think this has a chance to be a pretty wild draft tonight. Dane Brugler and others agree. I'm reading the last line of the intro paragraph to Brugler's latest mock draft, which came out this morning, says, I want chaos, and there's a good chance we're going to get it this year in the draft. Now, I brought up Brugler, and I bring him up specifically for a purpose. Who could slide this year? What could we be looking at tonight in the first round? Well, Brugler came out with his latest mock draft about an hour ago. And you know who's not in the first round of his latest mock draft? Shedeur Sanders is not in the first round of his latest mock draft. He's got Cam Ward at number 1. He's got the only other quarterback that is taken in the first round here is the Giants trading back up into the first round and landing Jackson Dart at 26. He's got Sanders out of the first round.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, look, There's some people who think none of these quarterbacks should go in the first round.
Yeah,
So,
there are.
I mean, well, the dart thing's interesting too with the Giants because apparently their GM's kid put together. You see this?
Yeah.
Put together like a highlight reel of him on like IG, and then he deleted it. Like he knows they're taking Jackson Dart. Oh boy,
Fart for dart.
Yes.
I like sharp for dart better. But yeah, the thing is, like, you can't, if that's your plan is to trade back up for him. How do you can't guarantee you're going to, unless you're planning to take him with your top pick.
Yeah.
Which would be quite a stunner, man. But yeah, I mean, look, Shador falling out of the first round, I don't think that's the craziest thing. I mean, Cam Ward being the only quarterback to go in the first round, I don't think it's the craziest thing. And also I could see like a few teams getting in late in that first round, and all of a sudden we end up with like 5, but it's a bunch of them with like a late run in the first round.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how that part of it plays out tonight. So we'll get into that next. Who could slide in the draft? Who could go a little bit higher than maybe we think in the first round coming up tonight? We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Don't miss Nashville's best NFL draft coverage on the Game Nashville Sports Network. Today, we are going to be live from Twin Peaks in Madison, and tomorrow from Boom Boss Pizza and Watch Bar in East Nashville. Coverage beginning at 6 o'clock each day, presented by Hardee's, Parman Tractor and Equipment, Twin Peaks, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Shane Co., and Professional Home Improvements. Today, we're going to be on 102.5 The Game. Stilly will be out there for his show, and then the draft show starts at 6 o'clock Friday on Sports Talk 8:30 as well. So Joe Rexrode will be a part of that tomorrow, coming up at Boom Boss in East Nashville. So look forward to that.
That's right. That's right. So interesting, you get some interesting commentary on the whole Cam thing. I got a texter saying NFL executives way higher on Cam than media. Outside of Bruce, Bob McGinn also interviewed a bunch of NFL people that are overwhelmingly positive on Cam. There are NFL executives who are not too. There are NFL executives who, again, there's one who has said he's not a first rounder. So, look, I think there's more positive than not on Cam Ward, which is part of why he's going number one, right? He's the consensus top quarterback. But then we also have somebody saying, why you guys, you guys are gassing him up. Were you trying to make people feel better? Yesterday, we're accused of, just trashing him. I mean, it's
all in the eye of the beholder.
And it's just, we're just really like relaying,
but doesn't that kind of tell you
a variety of opinions?
What you just said kind of tells you what I think the truth is. Yesterday people were all over us about being too much of a hater of Cam Ward, and today we're being like, you guys are gassing up Cam Ward, right, trying to get the Titans ready for it. It's like, well, that's kind of what this is. Like, there are people that love Cam Ward in the NFL, and there are people that don't really understand why he would be going number one. I mean, that's the truth of the matter, and I don't know where what it's actually going to play out as. But that's our job, is to present to you what we think and what we know right now.
Yeah, and again, like one of the biggest problems here is that he's almost for sure going to start right away. He's starting for an as yet unproven coach who may have a short timeline, and he's starting for a team that has the worst roster in the NFL. So it's just a bad starting point for him on this, on top of the questions just about him that are fair.
Yeah.
But look, he has a lot of talent. He has the talent. He has the potential to do it, to make it. I mean, it's possible. I'm not going to be shocked out of my mind if he turns into a great player. It's just, you look at everything, including him and what he's coming into, and he's got a lot of challenges.
There's no doubt. I mean, this is a roster right now that's rough, and this is not. Look, I even last year, right? Like, Caleb Williams went number one overall. Go look at the roster and the situation that Chicago had compared to the Titans right now. Like, again, Chicago did not have a great year last year, and frankly, they're a bad organization, so they tend to get in their way a lot. But, I mean, roster-wise, that team is in a better spot than the Titans are in right now. I don't think there's any question about it. Like, go back and look at it. So there's a lot of work to be done left for the Titans, and Cam Ward does not have, at the moment, the tools around him that he's going to eventually need to have if he's going to succeed in this league. So with that in mind, looking at the draft, tools that you can continue to add to the table if you're the Titans throughout the process here. As we entered it into just tonight, the first round, who are some guys that are maybe the most intriguing to you as to whether they could either fall or maybe they move up and get drafted higher than people think heading into the first round tonight? Where does that list kind of start with you?
Well, obviously the quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders, top 10, second round, somewhere in between. He's a big, but all the quarterbacks, of course, is Jackson Dart. I'm not a huge Jackson Dart fan, but I can see some. I mean, it seems like the Giants seem to be in love with them. Now, if the GM's kids IG thing is all part of a ruse, tip cap to the Giants, man. How about that? That'd be a lot of fun. Tyler Shuck, yeah. Okay. I mean, the Milrow thing is super fascinating. The Milrow thing is very fascinating. But beyond the quarterbacks, I mean, Ted McMillan for sure is one of those guys who could be all over the map here. Ashton Genty, is he going to actually, get down to, again, people are talking about like the Bears would snatch him up at 10, is he going to get to 10? I think that's crazy. Are the Jags going to take him?
No.
I think Genty is going to be great. But he is a running back, and so he could bounce around. Tyler Warren is another guy, is he so good that he's a top 10 pick, or is he more like a mid to later teens guy? I've seen him kind of all over the place. Those are some that come to mind immediately.
Tet McMillan's mine. Where is McMillan going to go? Because there's a popular thought, and I could see this, like that he's probably not getting past 12, which is where Dallas is. So Dallas needs a wide receiver. Now, they could go Golden. If they went Matthew Golden, then what's the next logical spot for McMillan after that? Like Seattle definitely needs a receiver, right? I mean, Metcalf's gone. Lockett's gone. They've got Smith and Jigba there, but they need a receiver. So I would imagine that at 18, Seattle's probably taking a receiver. But McMillan's interesting. Like how do people view him? Like if you're the Seahawks, how do you view him? If you're the Cowboys, is he unquestionably your guy given the size that he brings to the table? I think he's going to be really fascinating here. I mean, look, at this point, a guy that I don't really think is going to go in the first round based on what we've heard, unless it's at the very, very end of it. Like I at this point, I'd probably be stunned if James Pierce is going anywhere before 32, just because that seems like a very Philadelphia thing to do. But other than that, like I don't think he's going to go tonight. Like just based on the reporting around that. So we'll see on that front. Another guy that's going to be really interesting, and I think Brugler lays this out really well. What about Shamar Stewart? We talked about him a lot yesterday. He's got all the traits that you're looking for. He's got almost zero production. I mean, we talked about it. He had 4.5 sacks at Texas A&M in 3 years. Not in 1 year. Over 3 years, he had 4.5 sacks. So it's basically zero production with the traits that he brings to the table. Brugler's got him at 27 to Baltimore in his latest mock, and says, though, he could probably go as early as 9 to the Saints or fall to the end of the first round. He would be one that would scare the crap out of me if I'm one of these teams. And I understand the traits, but there's no production to back it up, and that makes me very nervous.
Yeah. No, he's very interesting. Yeah. So we're looking here at and he's the guy who, like, he'll go later than the traits would suggest, and then he'll go to a really good team, and then he'll be great. That's what I would guess. Like if he does here go like to the Ravens, I could see all of a sudden he's going to have like a 12-sack rookie year, and everybody's going to laugh. Oh yeah, you cared about it. But I mean, I'm with you. I mean, production should matter, right? Wait, what does that say? What does it mean? Some people have said, yeah, but if you really watch the film, I mean, he won a lot. It just, sometimes you just don't end up getting the sack. But man, it's a long time to have that little production. He's a really interesting player. James Pierce is, again, Brugler, his latest thing here is just just his first here. But I know his last one, he had him in the 50s.
Yeah,
he's way more talented than that. I mean, he's way more talented. He's absolutely a first-round talent. But obviously, whether it's more of like what people talked about at Tennessee, or if it's more like just his interviewing, boy, is he an example of how that stuff can really impact somebody.
Yep. And then there's a couple more intriguing guys here. Like, does Igbuka go in the first round? Like, we talk about guys being potentially available at 35 for the Titans. Like, I feel like Igbuka out of Ohio State is going to be a really solid pro. I don't know that he's going to be, a superstar wide receiver or anything like that, but I feel like he's going to be pretty reliable at the next level. So when you get towards the back part of the first round, does somebody really take a chance there on him?
So he's a safe pick. He's a high floor guy.
I agree with that.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with a high floor guy. But I think that's a big thing that I took away from like Bruce's piece he was talking about with us, is like it is a low star receiving group, which to me is like, if that's the case, I feel like maybe it makes more sense if you are picking at 35 to go edge And then if you have to wait until the fourth, you might still get a pretty good player there. Like the depth at receiver is really good. But like who's going to be a star? I mean, Matthew Golden could be.
Yeah.
But like he's probably the most exciting player at receiver. You think about previous classes and receivers at the top of the draft, way more dynamic than this group.
And strictly from a Titans standpoint tonight, obviously your pick is going to be done first. So you're out of the way. We know what that's going to be. There's still a lot of time left in the draft tonight. So not that I think the Titans are going to trade back up or anything like that, but one thing that I'd be keeping an eye on is at the end of the first round, is there a run on quarterback? If there's a run on quarterback, that's good for you because that means there's more edge rushers and wide receivers available at 35. The other side of that, is there a run on wide receiver or edge rusher? Because if there's a run on that at the end of the first round, those are less of those that are going to be available at 35. Or like, let's say there's a big run on receiver at the end of the first round. Well, you're going to have some pretty good edge options available for you at 35 at that point.
See,
so the back part of the first round is really worth paying attention to tonight if you're a Titans fan.
I almost feel like, for the Titans' sake, if there's an edge or if there's a run on edge or receiver and the run on quarterback doesn't happen until early in the second, that might be your chance to get out of there. So you might lose who you wanted to pick, and you might have someone who wants to get to 35 to get their QB, and it might end up benefiting you overall.
Does Will Levis get traded tonight?
I think before the weekend.
Okay.
I think before the weekend he gets traded.
Okay. Before the weekend, Will Levis traded.
Before the weekend's over, sorry. Not before the weekend. You know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. 615-737-1025, our phone number. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode is coming up next. We'll have Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports with us at 8 o'clock. So looking forward to that. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Sounds will play 2 against the Durham Bulls today at First Horizon Park. Pregame at 5:20. First pitch for Game 1 will be at 5:35. Coverage also available at the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
He said, and he's not even that good.
Jared wants it to be, yeah, he's had this huge bump from Dion, and now the football people are saying, no. I mean, dude, get out of the Ewok village and live in the real freaking world.
I'm going to come in here. I got 16 hot takes I'm going to go over today. He's a TV prospect, Joe.
The Super Soaker 50. Just pump up our powerful air pressure system, and you can soak someone up to 50 feet away. The Super Soaker 50.
Do you really want to sit on somebody else's wet or dry butt juice? Real ones don't wipe.
It's that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. Hey, the Super Soaker 50, man. 50 feet. That's a heck of a shot. Good stuff.
I say a lot of smart stuff, and luckily we record it all. So it's good to have that archive of.
Ian's having a lot of fun with this. I like it. Look
yeah.
at him in there.
Lots of fodder for Ian. But the last the Super Soaker thing, that's appropriate. I'll just tell you a little bit about my day yesterday. I went and got some shots up at the park. Came home. Yep, came home and pulled in the driveway. And right after I pulled in the driveway, my son pulled in the driveway, but he didn't get out of the car. Well, there was a car behind him, right behind him. It had apparently been following him for who knows how long and followed him all through the neighborhood and right to our driveway. So I got out of the car, looked at him. He's just sitting there. Looked behind him. There's a car full of high school girls who have water guns. And, they're kind of laughing and, they're kind of like taunting him and yelling at him. Like, okay, this is kind of fun. But it really, like, if it was the first thing that I'd encountered with this whole thing, I would have maybe thought it was fun. But I just kind of looked at him like, really? So then I went inside. And then, we were standing there. First of all, Brennan, is screaming, I need a charger, because his phone was dead, so that he could charge his phone so he could call his teammates in this stupid Assassins game that needs to be banned from society and have them come with their squirt guns to, I guess, like, give him cover so he could come into his home and have dinner. So went to get a charger, and as he started to put the window down, they immediately, came to the car, finally got the charger in there, then sat there every once in a while, checked on him. He just sit in the car, waiting for his phone to charge, watching him. And then finally these girls start toilet papering the car. My car.
Yeah.
Toilet papering. It's raining, so it's a nice mix of mushy toilet paper. Then they start taking every can and bottle from their car and just putting it on top of, again, my car.
You got to do something about these kids. Can I say that this is the dedication here? This has gone well beyond my level of dedication as a high schooler.
Well, it's a gambling ring.
We would do something for like 2 days, and then we're like, all right, let's move on to the next thing. This is an ongoing process here. It's kind of impressive that they're sticking with it this long.
Well, I mean, they've put in this money so that it's like $400 some per team member on the winning team. That's a gambling ring. That's illegal, and I'm calling the feds in to shut this down. So finally, after an hour and a half, they finally leave, and he runs into the garage, okay? And then I get to go out in the pouring rain and get all the toilet paper and other crap off my car. So then I got word this morning, about to come out to go to school, but don't worry, there was a whole bunch of people outside my home with their squirt guns, so you can't even go to school anymore.
This is absurd.
It's enough of this crap. And I mean, like, at some point, it's like, to get off my lawn, like, it's going to get real. Okay. And I'm going to go, I'm not going to go all Clint Eastwood on you. I'm a Dirty Harry, but I'm going to go all like,
just get the water hose.
Yeah. Like, there's going to be some kind of deterrent for kids who don't live at my home, who want to crowd around my home and do this stuff. Like, I'm sorry, but like, it's enough. It's enough of this stuff.
Ricky says you're a narc. Got one texter says the girls are just flirting with your son, Joe. It's okay. Dylan says sounds like
Do it at school.
Sounds like Joe's a hater because he never got chased around by cars full of girls in high school. This is from Dylan in Antioch.
Yeah. Hey, man, I'm telling you, like, that's all fine. Like, this is ridiculous. Rebecca says, I feel your pain, Joe. My daughter is in the middle of this right now. Teenagers lurking in the shrubs to tag my kid. Whoever, again, I'm sure this obviously has happened. People have told me they had their experiences. This whole thing is like, I'm about to sell him out. I'm like about to seriously go into and sell out his whole team and get them eliminated so we can start living our life again. So that's probably next, right? Like what other, like other than actually having the feds come in or the police come in and like shut this down, I think I may just have to sell them out.
Our big thing was junior senior wars in high school where we just like you did pranks between the junior class and the senior class.
That's
and
cool.
That ended when somebody poured Sprite in somebody's car gas tank.
Oh my God. So. Yeah. Some of that stuff can go far.
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one. Yeah, some of that stuff can go too far.
Let's go take the Sprite and pour it in the gas tank. That'll go great. Sure, that won't screw anything up.
Let's blow up someone's house.
615-737-1025. Our phone number. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us coming up next. We'll get into all things NFL draft with him as we are now about 11 hours away from the beginning of the draft. That's coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home with a $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Thursday morning. The NFL draft is tonight. We know what the Titans are doing at number 1 overall, but should be a very fascinating NFL draft tonight. And to help us talk more about that, we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing this morning?
Doing awesome, man. Appreciate
Excellent.
you taking time to be with us. So, Charles, we know Cam Ward's going 1 to the Titans tonight. Where does this draft start for you, and what's the most intriguing storyline for you heading into this tonight?
That's a good question. To me, I think it's. I think we get to 4. It's pretty much chalk. I think 1, 2, and 3. We've been here for a while, but I think Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, really 1, 2, 3 make most sense to me. It's frustrating because I feel like you sit down and really yesterday when you're trying to sort through the last couple of days and you sit there and you say, okay, we've been here for how long at this stage, and we get to 1, 2, and 3, and it feels like what it was weeks ago, if not, really where we started in terms of who the elite prospects were in this draft and where they were going to come off in the board. And realistically, I really think when you get to New England at number 4 and Will Campbell, that's sort of the wonky pick at this point where you're like, all right, it's not the perfect fit. It's not the perfect player. Should there be a trade at this point? Ashton Genty, I think, is kind of getting there's been interesting stuff that I think has kind of happened in the last 24 to 72 hours, 24, 48, 72 hours with Ashton Genty. So, but I think the top 3 picks, that's really kind of the chalk of this draft. And then once we get to the Patriots at number 4, that's when maybe the draft really begins for everybody, even though I think that, Will Campbell ultimately really, if you want to talk about what is the Mike Vrabel pick in this draft, it's ultimately going to be Will Campbell at number 4, but there's space there. I think there's wiggle there for things to happen ultimately at number 4.
Okay, so you tease the Ashton Genty thing. He is fascinating to me because I could Vrabel is, Vrabel loves having a great running back, so that would be
right.
one curveball
right.
there. What else do you think might happen there?
I think it's not just Vrabel, wanting to have a great running back, but also when you look at the Patriots, it's like, okay, is Will Campbell, is he a natural offensive tackle? No. I mean, the measurables, the wingspan, the arm length, when you really look at the analytics of it, you're like, well, he doesn't really fit the classic offensive tackle mode. He looks like a guy that ultimately could slide inside. He could be a guard. Do you take a guard at 4? And then you ask yourselves, okay, the Patriots, are they good enough to just say, well, we have to get an offensive lineman? Or the Patriots, from a talent perspective, do you just go get the most special players still available at 4? And that's the thing, is that Genty, if he was not a running back, if he was anything else, you would say absolutely that's the 4th overall pick in this draft. But because he's a running back, I think there's still this push historically to push him down the board because of the fact that he's a running back. But when you talk about just special players, period, let's just talk about special players in this draft. He's probably the 3rd best player, right? I mean, or he's in the top 3 when you talk about Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Ashton Genty are typically the 3 guys where teams talk about special prospects. He's one of those guys. So I think that's what sort of continues to force him at the 4th pick, where if we're sitting here in a few hours and the Patriots take Genty at 4, we're going, okay, well, he's special. He's a unicorn. It's high to take a running back, but we get it. We look at the roster. We understand why he would go at 4. Plus, on top of that, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I personally believe, and over the last 48 hours, a number of NFL teams in the top 10 believe that the Jaguars are going an offensive skill position player at 5. So Genty is a player that a lot of other teams are pointing at 5. So if he can go 5, he can go 4. So that to me is really why the draft starts at 4, because of course, do the Patriots need an offensive tackle? Yes. Is there an easy fit there? It depends how you feel about the measurables and Will Campbell. But if Genty ends up going 4, it'll be surprising. But I also think that's the pick where we go, okay, the draft can take a left turn, and there's some argument there to be had because of the need for the Patriots just to have an impact player at 4.
So, Charles, I want to stick with running back for a second because Rexrode falls in love with one player in the draft every year, and this year it's Cam Scatterbo out of Arizona State. And I read your piece from Yahoo Sports about how maybe the vibe on Cam Scatterbo not great heading into this draft. What are you hearing there?
Dumb people in this league. Dumb people in this league.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I was really surprised. First off, doing the All Juice team, he got so many votes for the All Juice team. I thought to myself, I was like, maybe this is a guy who, okay, maybe he's an end of the second round type of player for NFL teams. But then when I sat down, I'm like, all right, I gotta do positional stacks. Let me go through this, and I talked to evaluators from 10 different teams. I was stunned by kind of the negativity just in terms of where he sort of fit in the stack for most NFL teams. And, it was like 4th round. It was 4th round, mid 4th. Some had him early 5th. And it shocked me because I had talked to myself into sort of at the end of the All Juice process. I thought, wow, maybe he's a second round pick. Maybe he's a guy that, there's a team that really likes him enough to get him into maybe the mid second round of this draft. But I don't know if it was, I think part of it is the speed. Teams really can't talk themselves into where he fits from a speed perspective. But that was a shocker. It didn't line up. I at the end of the All Juice team, I remember I was sitting there with Charles McDonald, and we were like, okay, he's got to be on the team. Where does he fit in terms of because we draft the team by sort of area of the draft. I was like, can we get around with taking, can we get away with taking him in the end of the 3rd? And I thought that was touchy. I was like, I don't think he's going to go in the end of the 3rd. I think he's going to go, somewhere in the 2nd, maybe early in the 3rd. But then when I sat there and I said, okay, positional stack, and I walked through it with every single team that I talked to that was really willing to help me out in terms of stacking the position at running back. All of them were 4th round, and if not later. And I think it really shocked me at that point to kind of see where he was fitting in the running back stack. In my mind, I still think, there's just no way this is a guy that lasts until the 4th round or God forbid the 5th round. He's just too useful, I think, as a player. And I think some team is going to sit there and go, look, I don't care if he runs a 4.8. He doesn't play as a 4.8 running back in terms of his speed. He's not a 4.8, 40-yard dash kind of guy. And there have definitely been a few people I've talked to who've said, they just can't see him sitting around forever because of the multitude of things that he can do when he's ultimately on the field. But yeah, I mean, it really, really shocked me. I think of when I sat there and I did the stacks of particularly the offensive skill positions, that was the one guy that I couldn't get over. He and Milroe. I mean, a lot of people were like, yeah, could Milroe go at the end of the 1st? Sure. But we really have him middle of the 2nd, early 3rd. It was like Jalen Milroe and Cam Scatterbo were the two that I really couldn't get over. Just the disparity between how much teams like to watch his film to where they really had him stacked on the board.
So do you follow Joe Shane's son on Instagram, Charles?
I don't, but is he the one who, when you watched the Hard Knocks offseason, was he the one who was like, "You should take Jaden Daniels"?
You should probably take Jaden Daniels, Dad.
Yeah,
This kid's smart.
In my mind, that's always what I remember about him, is that I'm like, man, he's a really good value. He probably called that draft the best in 2024.
So what I want to know is if he has this Jackson Dart highlight tape that he puts together, shares it, then like deletes it. Does that mean he knows something, or that he just wants his dad to do that? And by the way, you think it's like they're going Abdul Carter. That means that they must be planning to move back into the first, late in the first type thing.
Yeah. They're not taking a quarterback at third. Like, there's just no way at this point. Like, again, I told you, I think the top of the draft is chalk when we talk about, first, second, third. It's going to be Ward. It's going to be Hunter. It's going to be Abdul Carter. Number 3. I think the one interesting thing was when I sat there and I said, where does this draft start? Initially, earlier in the week, I felt like the Giants were a much more iffy pick when it came to Abdul Carter, because I was like, all right, when I talked to other teams, when they talked about Carter, I mean, he's not as clean as an evaluation as we've talked about throughout the process. There's a foot, potential for a foot injury in the future. There's a potential for a shoulder injury in the future. He didn't work out. He didn't do private workouts. His sort of body makeup, it's like, can he add enough weight to ensure that he's not just this speed player who doesn't, accrue injuries over the course of the year? One thing that really stuck in my mind was, a year ago, I had teams that kind of described Ricky Pearsall as this, race car body type. Like, you look at it and you think as an athletic profile, you like it, but then you're like, is he going to be injured a lot because of sort of just the body type he brings to the table? Abdul Carter fell into that category this year, going into the assessment. So, I thought in my mind, I'm like, where does the draft start? I'm like, maybe it starts at 3. They have Kayvon Thibodeau, they have Brian Burns. Maybe a team trades to 3 ultimately. But I think really what crystallized in my mind in the last day or so at 3 was he's the best player at the board. Once you get beyond the top, 3 players, Cam Ward, and you can throw Genty in there, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Ashton Genty, there's this massive talent shelf fall off. And they're not going to screw around with that. They're not going to move out of 3 to go play around at some other position, because they're not going to take Genty. And so 3 is definitely going to be Abdul Carter, but they've done so much homework on Shedeur Sanders. And I've been so locked on all this work they've done on Shedeur Sanders. And I've actually had a couple other teams in the quarterback market say, look, it's not just Shedeur. They've done a lot of homework on the quarterbacks in general. And especially Jackson Dart is another guy up there where they've done a comparable amount of work beyond Shedeur, also on Jackson Dart. So I had spent, I think, the expanse of more than a week saying, look, if they're going to trade up at the end of the first round, they're going to come up and they're going to get Shedeur Sanders. They've followed this guy around all season long. This is really where they pushed a bulk of their work. They've had meetings with him personally. I think to even out some of the thought process internally about what his character was like. Maybe it wasn't always the best when they met with him. And then I had other teams say, look, you're concentrating so much on Shedeur. I'd put Jackson Dart in that same category. They've done the same amount of work. And this is other teams that have done work on Dart saying, look, the Giants have done a ton of work on Dart as much as they've done on Shedeur. I don't think I really fully absorbed that. And probably in the last 24 hours, that's one of the things that I think changed for me is I was like, okay, if they trade back into the first round, it's a Shedeur kind of move. And I've had a few other teams convince me that it's not a Shedeur move. It could potentially be a Jackson Dart move. It's one of those two ultimately, if they move into the tail end of the first round. And I've seen some reports that and I think they're slightly overblown, but I've seen some reports that Brian Daboll maybe did not necessarily have the favorable connection with Shedeur Sanders in some of their private meetings that everybody thinks they have. I personally, I think that's, slightly overcooked at this point. I approach that with skepticism. That feels like a piece of information that if the Giants want to move up in the end of the first round, one of those things that I think you try to get out there late is, maybe we don't like Shedeur so much. Maybe Brian Daboll didn't have the greatest personal meetings with him. I'm like, wow, that really came out very, very late in the process, and it feels like you're sort of trying to throw people off. But what I do think is probably accurate is it's a Shedeur or Jackson Dart move up for the Giants at the end of the first round, and it'll be really, really interesting to me at the end of today to sort of see what happens in picks, 26, 27 to 32. That's where the Giants, I feel like, try to go and get their quarterback.
So, Charles, Mike Borgonzi, Chad Brinker spoke earlier this week and said, don't bother calling us anymore. We know what we're doing at number one. Everybody knows it's going to be Cam Ward. What do you make of the process to get to this point for the Titans, and now that the day is here, the situation that Cam Ward is walking into here in Nashville?
I truly believe it was open in terms of the pick. I feel like it was open into, at the very least, mid-March. It's when you talk to people inside Cam Ward's camp, there was no doubt into mid-March. Their thought process was, the Giants are going to be really aggressive here. They're going to come up and they're going to get Cam. He's going to be the number one overall pick, but he's going to ultimately end up playing for the New York Giants. I think Cam Ward believed that into mid-March, that, look, I'm going to be the number one overall pick. I'm going to end up playing for the Giants. Like, this trade is ultimately going to get worked out. And I think the reason why they believe that was whatever, lines of communication that were open between the Giants and Cam Ward's camp led Cam Ward to believe they're definitely going to trade up and they're going after him at number one overall. But I think ultimately what happened over the course of the process was I felt like he had a very, very clean process. I thought everything I heard was the interviews were great. From a leadership standpoint, he showcased a lot in personal meetings to suggest that, he's absolutely what you want at quarterback in terms of leading your team. I think the pro day, the private workouts, I kind of think like he hit everything. It was like he didn't really have this period where something popped up and you're like, oh, there's this character issue, or, from a physical standpoint, there were certain limitations. I don't think that ever really occurred. So I think if you talk about Cam Ward and you go, why is he number one overall pick? I think his process was about as clean as it could be. And the Tennessee Titans got to the point where it was like I knew by late February, early March, they were out on Levis. They did not want to start Will Levis at quarterback. And if it wasn't going to be in free agency, if it wasn't going to be via trade, they were getting another quarterback in there who was their long-term starter, with a horizon, a decade out. That had to me, that had to be a drafted quarterback. And if it wasn't going to be Cam Ward, it didn't make sense. A lot of other players who ultimately were going to be available to them. So I just think it was the fact that, there's a lot of box checking that happens with quarterbacks along the way. And I think he really accomplished that. And one of the things that always sticks out to me, we talked about this early. I mean, probably a month ago, we talked about this. If you're drafting a quarterback, you have to sit there and say, this is a guy I want to compete with all these other AFC quarterbacks. Who has the ceiling out there right now? And if you want to, knock Cam Ward and say there's too much off schedule stuff, or, maybe his size isn't perfect, or this, that, and the other, he has the ceiling beyond, I think, other than maybe Jalen Milroe, but Milroe is such a body of work where it's like, it's going to take years. If he's going to meet the potential he has, it's going to be a multitude of years. other than that guy, I think Cam Ward is the one who walks in and has the ceiling that allows you to think in terms of planning. We can compete with these other AFC quarterbacks that ultimately he's going to have to compete with. I don't know if there's anybody else out there that could ultimately accomplish that, especially in a short period of time. Maybe you can argue it with Milroe. That's fine. But I think Milroe is a projection out to, 2027, 2028. Cam Ward is somebody who, personally, I believe, given what he's done at Incarnate Word, what he's done at Washington State, what he's done at Miami, he's shown he can walk into a program and immediately take that next step in development. And I think that's what a lot of teams really ultimately believe about him.
Couple quick ones from the text line for you, Charles, driven by WilsonCountyHead.com. People asking about Pierce and Mike Green possibly falling to the second. It seems to me like Pierce might project as a second rounder. James Pierce, we're talking, given all the talk about his stuff. Mike Green seems like a lock first rounder. Also, someone's asking Matthew Nashville about a blockbuster trade Jerry Jones says in the works. And could George Pickens be part of it?
Okay. Green, I think I'd be shocked if he fell out of the first round. Pierce, he's fringy. There are definitely some teams that do not like him. I'd be lying if I said the word knucklehead never came up with James Pierce. And I mentioned that because, like Pierce to me, it was interesting like a year ago when I always ask like a year out. It's usually so if I'm at the combine in 2024, I'm asking like, okay, we're talking about the 2024 draft, but tell me about the 2025 draft. If I'm at the combine in 2025, I'm asking about the next year. Like Pierce was a guy that I remember literally sitting there in like February of 2024 at the combine and, a full year out from the 2025 draft, more than a full year out. And I said, let's project this a year out, like, 14 months from now, who's potentially the top pick in the 2025 NFL draft. And I had teams who were like, watch James Pierce at Tennessee. And, I feel like it kind of diminished ultimately what happened at the end there for him at Tennessee. I still think though, the talent, he's a fringe, ultimately first round pick in this draft. I would not be surprised though to see him slip into the second. I think there was a little more disappointment at how things ended for him. And then who else were we talking about?
This blockbuster trade, George Pickens. Cowboys fans wants George Pickens.
Okay, so
can they dream?
Here's the blockbuster trade problem. And so when Jerry Jones comes out and he says, hey, we're working on 2 substantive trades here. My thought process was, and I think a number of NFL teams too, once you really started texting, it was funny because it started almost immediately after you had that press conference. And he's saying, we're working on 2 substantial, trades in this draft. I think people were like, are they going after Patrick Ramsey? Are they going after not Patrick Ramsey? Again, dating myself here. Obviously Ramsey. Patrick Ramsey. Good God. But Ramsey, Jair Alexander. It's like, okay, corner. What corner are they going after? And then George Pickens. And the pushback I got on Pickens ultimately was, look, if they're going to go after George Pickens, it's at a point in Pickens' career where you have to sign him to a deal. And most teams are not calling the Pittsburgh Steelers about Pickens and offering anything of consequence because they know really ultimately what we'll be doing is we're trading for Pickens at this point just for the 2025 season. We have no idea if we can sign him to a long-term contract or if we want to sign him to a long-term contract because we haven't had him in our building. And the Steelers have had him in their building, and they've been picking up the phone on him. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
I was saying they've had him in the building. It sounds fun to have him in your building.
Yeah. Well, you if you pick up the phone on a player of that talent in particular for 18 months, it's a signal to other teams that like, okay, he's probably a problem. Like, this is a problem. Like, do you want to give money to this guy long term? Is it something where you're comfortable paying him. Clearly, the Steelers have not been comfortable paying him, and that telegraphs a pretty significant red flag to other teams. So I got pushback definitely from other teams. And I think I even went on Pittsburgh radio where I was like, look, other teams immediately question, are the Cowboys trying to trade for George Pickens? Because at the 12th pick in the draft, I can tell you, and then they might go best player available. They've done that in recent years, and it's been very lucrative, for them. But they've been very corner and wide receiver driven at the 12th pick in the draft. They really want to get a number 2 wide receiver. And if it's not Tech McMillan, it feels very rich for other players, whether it's Matthew Golden, whether it's Emeka Egbuka, anyone else at the wide receiver position feels very rich at 12. So it makes sense that they would go shopping for a wide receiver in the trade market. Why Jerry would make that public or at least make public that they're trying to work on trades is anybody's guess. But a lot of teams are like, you don't trade for Pickens at this point, unless you're giving up virtually nothing. If you're giving up a 5th and you're going and getting George Pickens for a season, okay, that makes sense. But, a day 2 pick for George Pickens, you only deal that kind of asset if you're ready to pay the guy. And no one, I think, across the league is ready to give George Pickens a contract in the next couple of weeks / months, which would be indicative of giving up sort of a middle round pick for him. The talent is there. I just think it's, for years, the Steelers, when you've gone into the Steelers organization, come out, there's always sort of been this idea with the wide receivers that they wanted an adult in the room, and it was almost always tied to Pickens. So nobody wants to pay that guy right now. And I won't rule it out, but I would be stunned if the Cowboys gave up anything of consequence to go get George Pickens, because you just know it's sort of a 1-year deal at this point. But I will add on too, when it comes to, Mingo, Trey Lance, they've given up higher draft assets for guys that they've acquired in the last, 2 years than maybe other teams would. So if there is a team that would give up more for Pickens at this point without having the horizon worked out, that would probably be the Cowboys.
Well, Charles, it's going to be fun. Hope you have fun today. Thanks so much for taking time to be with us, and we will talk to you next week, my friend.
I just, before I go, I want to make sure that we have to get Joe threatening to call the feds, quote unquote, the feds.
The feds.
Hey man, whatever I need.
we need that as a drop. That has to be worked out. Like we got to make sure we get that. I mean, other than that, like, what's it? The Skiatika?
Oh yeah.
Drop. We have to get Joe threatening to call the feds on the kids in his neighborhood.
I say a lot of stupid crap, Charles. Hey man, this is insane. This is out of hand, man. So I mean, I'm
super soakers
desperate.
galore.
Yeah. It's
calling the feds though is
it's a gambling ring. It's tobacco, firearm, and what are the ATF agents, man?
Exactly.
Get me out of here.
Get to Nolensville.
You are a narc. Whoever said that on the text line is completely correct.
Hello, fellow kids.
Oh, boy.
Right.
Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports, our guest. We'll react to what Charles had to say. Interesting stuff on the NFL draft we'll get to coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Join me and 102.5 The Game from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Coleman Tractor in White House this Saturday for Kubota Orange Days. There'll be exclusive deals on compact tractors, zero turns, and more with special financing also available. Sale runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. with demos, deals, giveaways, and lunch from 11 to 1. That's at the Coleman Tractor of White House, located at 3631 Highway 31 West this Saturday. I will be out there, so looking forward to that. Hope you come out and join us out there on Saturday. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Appreciate Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports for being with us in the last segment. And he says for him, the draft kind of begins at 4. Thinks the first 3 picks will be chalk of Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and Abdul Carter. And then we'll see from there. What he said about Jacksonville is interesting. Like, there's a growing sentiment around the league that they could take a skill player with Liam Cohen coming in. Genty would make a lot of sense from that standpoint there. I think the more you look at it and kind of the conversation around the league today, as I saw Pelissero talking about this on the NFL Network, I think it's going to be a pretty unpredictable first round. Could be wild in terms of the way this ends up playing out there. Exciting to see.
Yeah, for sure. Like every year, someone on the text line today mentioned like Mayock I think he has James Pierce going 19th or something, which reminds me of like the draft in Nashville when Mike Mayock took like a 4th rounder at number 10 or whatever he did.
Yeah.
Like, wow. The Raiders did what? So there's always going to be a surprise or two. There's always stuff that's hard to know exactly how it's going to go, but I do feel like this one could be a little more all over the place. And that's what happens when teams have, 9, 10 guys with first round grades, One thing I actually wanted Charles to clarify, but I knew what he was saying. He was talking about the top 3, the top 3 on the board, like the top 3 prospects, Ward, Hunter, Carter. That's not really technically true. Ward just is going first because he's the quarterback. But interesting when you think about like the way he looks at it, like Genty would be that next guy as the best football player. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to go next. I'm very interested on that with Vrabel. Because if I'm Vrabel, yes, they obviously need a lot on that team. They need a lot of help. But like the offensive line class here also is like everyone has a flaw, it seems like. You know what I mean? There are no offensive. Usually, if you have an offensive tackle who's a legit big time prospect, they're talked about possibly as a number 1 pick, and there's nobody that. So it makes sense for them to address need. And if they love Will Campbell and all that, fine. But man, I would argue with Vrabel. First of all, learn how to like cheer at a basketball game and don't golf clap. And second of all, I think Ashton Genty might be the way to go there.
Well,
but Ashton Genty could be sitting there for the Bears at 10.
Well,
God forbid.
Will Campbell. I read Brugler's mock draft earlier. He's gotten 4 to the Patriots, and he says, he could end up being a Pro Bowl player, even if he has to move inside to guard. And it's like, well, no. Like, I'm not drafting him 4th overall if he's moving inside to guard. Not to go all stilly on you, but like I'm not drafting a guard at number 4. So you better be darn convinced he's a left tackle if you're drafting him at number 4. That's the way I view it.
I'm with you, man. Vrabel's like, hey, Will, glad to meet you. Shake my hand. Oh, I have to get really close to you to shake your hand.
Wow, we basically hugging each other.
Yeah, we have to hug for me to shake your hand, Will. But other than that, I really like your game.
Yeah.
No, I just and honestly, I know we've got is it Dustin who's like still mad that the Titans didn't take Brock Bowers?
That's Jared from Spring Hill.
Oh, that's Jared. Yeah. That may be a little much, but like I feel kind of the same way about Tyler Warren. Oh man. Tyler Warren is going to be really good.
I agree.
He's going to be really good. So, look, if you love an offensive lineman, then take the offensive lineman. But when you have difference-making offensive skill guys and you have a chance to take that's like, to me, Tyler Warren is another one of those guys that's a clear first-rounder in this draft. And there are a lot of guys who aren't, who are going to go, obviously, tonight in the first round.
Interesting what Charles had to say on your boy, Cam Scadaboo, as well as to where exactly he could land in the NFL draft coming up.
We just had him up on the TV here on Good Morning Football. So they respect him. They respect the Scadaboo.
They do.
If Scadaboo in the 5th round makes my brain melt. That's ridiculous.
I would encourage the Titans to take him if he's there in the 5th round.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Maybe the Titans, they had him in for a visit. Maybe they had an inkling like he actually is going to be there later than you might think, and that's a hell of a value pick, which it would be.
Maybe they're one of the teams that don't like him after they visited with him. Like, nah.
One of the teams putting it out there.
Yeah.
Like to his point on the whole, it is funny the different things that come out now that are like, if it comes out really late,
what does it mean?
Total BS. Again, the Colts loving Levis was definitely a thing before that draft, right?
Yep.
And of course, it was not at all true. They liked another guy who isn't working out in the NFL.
Yeah. Jared on the YouTube chat says, Scattaboo is scatapoo. It's directed at you.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of funny. But also get the fart out of here, man.
615-737-1025. Our phone number. You make me incredibly nervous every time you go down that route.
You think I'm just a dumb mother farter, don't you?
Just incredibly nervous. As does making Ian nervous back there too. Well, more on the NFL draft final segment of the day coming up next. Robby and Rexrode 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. The NFL draft tonight. And we know what the Titans are doing at number 1 overall. Cam Ward. That era begins tonight for the Tennessee Titans. Tyler Lockett signed last night to add to the receiver room. So some help there for Ward as he steps into the organization later today. But Joe, here we are. We've made it through. There's been a whole lot of chatter about getting to this point. We've made it. What do you make of what's on deck for the Titans tonight with Cam Ward coming in and where things sit with him joining the organization as the quarterback?
I'm sorry, man, but right behind you, D's notes.
Oh God.
This is a Dan Orlowski thing?
Good gracious.
We continue to toe the line of things we maybe should or should not say on the air. It's an exciting night for Titans fans. That's what it should be. You know, you may not like the pick, but it's happening. So embrace it. You know, embrace it and hope that I agree. I think Charles made a good point, which is, you know, it's like if you are going to try to take on these AFC teams, which the AFC is by far the better quarterback conference of the two.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's a good point. You know, high ceiling might be the way that because again, I've been more enamored with Sanders of the two. I wouldn't take either at number 1, but because Sanders, I think, has a higher floor, and I value accuracy. But I think that's a good point, that the high ceiling, the tantalizing ability to make throws that most people in the world can't make, is if you can put it all together, and putting it all together means putting a team around him, and boy, are you a long way from that, then maybe you could have something special here. And you may as well embrace it. I mean, it's the Cam Ward era.
It's what it is.
And we'll see how it goes. And we know the history of all the guys before him since McNair who haven't worked out. It does not mean that this one won't.
Nope. Look, I'm excited. We've talked our way through this whole thing, and I think you and I are of similar mind. Now, I do like Ward better than Sanders, so we differ there. But I don't know that I would take Ward number 1 overall if I were running the team. However, that's what they're doing tonight. And, you know, I've said it many times throughout this process. You watch him long enough and you walk away thinking, man, he's got some ability. So hopefully this is the start of an era here of football here in Nashville that lasts for a long time. That's really, really good. Hopefully this is the beginning of quarterback play and the beginning of the process of team play that ultimately leads to Titans competing for championships. That's what the whole point is.
Exactly. You know, earlier point I made, the Levis comparisons, and there are definitely some comparisons. There's some parallels. You know, I said like Levis, better athlete. Levis, there's a huge difference though in terms of like Levis is a straight line faster runner than Cam Ward, but Cam Ward definitely, you know, again, go back to the Dane Brugler, taller, slower Kyler Murray.
Yeah,
but the thing about that is he is his short space quickness and elusiveness is very good. And that's way better than Levis. So that's a big thing too, is like, can he turn that into making plays with his feet, or is it just to extend plays to throw the ball? I mean, that's where you can get dangerous, right? For defenses, if you can extend plays.
Yep.
But he's he's very good at that. It's just sometimes also he can get himself in trouble. But we'll have a long time to break down that game.
We will.
Of Cam Ward.
I'm excited to start. Number 1, the draft talk. At least the Cam Ward part of the draft talk ends tonight. We'll know that he's going to be the quarterback for sure after tonight. And then beyond that, like, you know, if you're a Titans fan, it's like, well, cool. The NFL draft's tonight. We know who the pick is going to be for the Titans. So, all righty. What are we looking forward to? I'm really fascinated to keep my eye on what happens at the end of the first round tonight. Is there a run on quarterbacks? What receivers are left on the board after night 1? What edge rushers are left on the board after night 1? And how does that influence what the Titans do at 35 tomorrow? I think it's got a chance to be a really fun first round of the draft tonight. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, if you're a Titans fan and you're like, gosh, there's no drama. That is how that plays out late in the first could dictate. To me, if the quarterbacks don't go in bunches at the end of the first round, I think that's better if you want to trade back at 35, because then they could have a run on them tomorrow. Or no, yes, tomorrow.
Yeah,
tomorrow's Friday.
Tomorrow is
Today's
Friday.
Thursday.
Hope everyone enjoys the
Congratulations,
draft
everybody.
tonight. We'll have you covered on 102.5 The Game for our draft show tonight, beginning at 6 o'clock. So make sure you're tuned in for that at Twin Peaks in Madison. That does it for us today. Chasing Big Joe is up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.